Well, good afternoon, everyone. All right. So I'm going to declare our meeting open. Firstly, and welcome everyone that's here. I've got apologies from Councillor Mealings and Councillor Neville Atkinson, and the reason for their apologies was they were commissioners as part of the hearings for the hearings commissioners, so that's the reason they're not here today. So Councillor Bryan will move, seconded those apologies. Oh, and also, sorry, Councillor Blackie is unfortunately not able to be here this afternoon. So with that, moved and seconded, moved Councillor Bryan, seconded Councillor Goldsworthy. I'll put those apologies. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Are there any conflicts of interest for reporting or minuting? No. All right, so we now come to reports. Item 3.1, which is submissions on the proposed Waimakariri District Plan. Momentous day, really. Probably one of the biggest decisions this council will make. So I'd like to hand over now to, is it Matt and Kelly? Yes. Thank you. And welcome to our legal advisor who's here with us as well. So thank you for your attendance. Matt.
Thank you. So just before we begin, I just had a typo pointed out to me in paragraph 3.15 of the report. So that says currently in the table, statutory appeal ends 25th of September 2025. That should say August 2025, just as a note of that one. So with that, I just thought I would briefly speak to this report because as I hope the report conveys, there's a lot of ground that's been covered in this particular process. And an illustrative example of this is I happened to see the agenda when it went online last week, and in its non-electronic form, as you'll all be aware, having tried to read it, it's over 2,500 pages long. But thankfully for most of us, it's the last time we see the plan in that format because we do convert it into an electronic version of the plan when we eventually notify your decisions. So we stop needing to print all of that information. So I'd just like to highlight a couple of key points in the report. The first one is that your two main decisions today relate to the proposed district plan submissions and separately decisions on the intensified streamlined planning process. And you'll see in the report we've tried to set out a glossary of terms because there are quite a number of terms that we use, but that has been largely known as the MDRS changes or the housing changes, for want of a better term. So those two processes have very similar but not the same legislative requirements, and that's why we had two panels giving you recommendations on the process. And you'll note that within both of those panels' recommendations, they've set out their intentions were to, as far as possible, integrate their decisions to provide a common set of provisions. So essentially we end up with one version of a plan when we go out. The main difference to remember for your consideration and decisions today is that if you do choose to not accept all of the MDRS panel recommendations, there's a separate process for decisions that to be made, and that's set out in paragraph 4.7 of the report. Just also like to touch on the process. As Dan mentioned, it's been quite a long process. By way of some highlights and numbers, we received over 12,000 submission points and 725 submissions across 4 separate notification timeframes that was for the plan review. We ended up with 35 days of hearings and over 900 pieces of evidence from submitters. So as previously noted, there's been a lot of work from both people in council and in our community over many years to get us to this milestone. And you'll see this is the end of phase 2 of the process and potentially the start of phase 3 of the process. So we're at the beginning of the end of the process. And that again is in paragraph 3.15 with my notes that changed before. That's all I wanted to say, but Kelly did want to also add something as well.
Thanks, Matt. One thing that I just wanted to add is you will have heard from Matt just how big this process is, and I know that you are all aware of that already. As you will have seen in the report to you today, the staff recommendations are that you adopt all of the panel recommendations. And you will have also seen in some of the panel recommendation reports that the panel didn't always accept all of the officer recommendations. And that's anticipated as you go through these kinds of processes. And I just wanted to highlight that just because there were some of those differences between the officer recommendation and the panel recommendation, that doesn't change our overall staff recommendation that you accept the panel recommendations. So just wanted to lay that out for you and highlight that in the report today. And with that, happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for that excellent summary up front and those stats, Matt. What were they again? How many, just to run over?
So 12,000 submission points, or slightly over 12,000 submission points, 725 submissions, and that was across 4 separate notification processes, 35 days of hearings, and over 900 pieces of evidence from submitters.
So how many? 900?
Over 900 pieces of evidence.
Wow. Incredible amount of work. All right. Questions of colleagues? All right. We have then, sorry, do you have a question?
Might as well make a question.
Yes, thank you,
Yes,
Councillor
please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of medium density residential zone, how many submitters put forward views which were in objection to medium density residential zone, please? Would you have an idea as to how many? And what were the majority of the views of it?
From memory, and this is memory, so it would be good to go back and double check that. There were 75 submitters that submitted on the Variation 1 medium density standards. There are a range of views. The applicability of the zone to different areas of our district was one. Sunlight and shading issues was another. And then there were several other points as well. I just don't have them to hand. But yes, I believe 75 submissions. And I should probably note, for completeness too, some of those submissions were supportive of the changes as well.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Redmond?
Thanks for the report, Matt. I wondered what you're going to do in your spare time now. Just
implement it, hopefully.
You don't have to answer that. Just looking at the MDRS, was the hearing panel constrained by the government's direction with the requirements that came in whilst we're already embarking upon our review?
I'm not sure if constrained is the right word, but so the independent hearings panel portion of the panels did have a legislative process to follow, which gives you some different assessment criteria. So for example, qualifying matters have a series of different tests that they need to meet to be qualifying matters. And I suppose if you want to use the term constrained, they were constrained within that process of that assessment.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? All right, well, from the chair, I'm going to move the recommendations contained in the report under 3.1. Councillor Fulton's going to second that. Okay. So firstly, I want to start by saying that it's been an impressive amount of work, and as Matt's already indicated, through that, the number of days of hearings, the number of submissions, 12,000 submission points, 725 submissions, that's incredible, really, when we think about that. When we embarked on this journey, it was indicated to us, because of all the changes that were going on, we could pause and not undertake a district plan review or press on. And I'm pleased that we pressed on. because as we've seen, there's been a number of changes at a central government level, and we don't know where that's going to be at. But our district plan, at the time it was notified, it's been going since my notes, about 2005 from memory. We were at a point where it was really seriously out of date, and so we needed to make sure that our district plan was fit for purpose for our district, noting whatever might come about and other changes later on. As we started the process, or as we notified the process, then the MDRS provisions then came about. So that threw a little curveball, but our team, as always, managed that really well, and thank you for how you dealt with that to ensure that what we do have is then a plan that is compliant within the legislative framework. And we may all have our individual positions with respect to matters, but that's why we put an independent hearings panel in place to properly consider this. And I want to really acknowledge today the members of that. So we had Gina Sweetman as the chair, Gary Ray, Alan Cubitt, Megan Mackay, alongside two of our council colleagues, both Councillor Mealings and Councillor Deputy Mayor Neville Atkinson. And I think that they've done an outstanding job pulling this and piecing this all together. I appreciate there will be those who are happy with the plan, and there may be some that may not be happy with the decisions, but that is in the positions that have been reached, but that is what an independent process is there to weigh all that up, look at the evidence, and ultimately make a decision. And when I look at the whole picture, it's a very complicated and intricately woven process. I think the hearings panel has done a superb job. They really have, and I think they've delivered us a plan. Let's look at it in broad terms, that if things go as we are seeing, there will be between 14 to 17,000 new dwellings over the next 20 years. It's pretty impressive. So for those that say we don't have adequate growth, I say have a look at the plan. There's more than adequate growth that's managed here over the coming period of time. Our district will continue to grow, and I think growth is important, but growth is not at any cost, and I think that's the bit that we've always valued here. It's about our district growing sustainably. When I was first elected 21 years ago, the district's size sat at 38,000 in terms of dwellings that we had. District sat at 38,000 residents. We're now at 74,000 and continuing to grow, and we'll be at 100,000 we estimate in the next 15 to 20 years. Maybe that's conservative, but I think that's the point just to note, that we've doubled in size during that time, but we haven't lost the character that's unique to our district. We have established towns that have been here for quite some time, and we've got smaller rural settlements in there, and those things are really important, and are the things that our community continue to tell us that they value. I've recently found out a lot about my own family history when my grandfather passed away last year, and I wasn't aware of this. We were early settlers in the Lowburn area, came in the 1850s, 1860s, so about 7th, 8th generation, according to, if I've got the calculations right. He was brought out, and what he set up was building a lot of the roads out in that area. And the first, the Ashley Bridge, he was went on to the council, and was one of those who was the determining vote that put in the Ashley Bridge. So perhaps that's where my buck came for in terms of interest in local affairs, but we're all connected in some way, and I love the parts in our district where we have just that lovely character and the things that have gone back for successive generations, and we don't want to lose that. And I think from what I've read here, I think the panel has done an excellent job of balancing all that against all the other competing demands that we all have. The MDRS provisions, I think it would be fair to say we all have our own viewpoints with respect to that. And I say to colleagues, there'll be an opportunity at a later stage if we have any remaining concerns after appeal processes and other things are out of the way where those things can be further considered. 3 stories, is it practical? Are they going to be things that are actually going to be built? To be honest, what I hear from the development community is 2 stories, yes, but 3 stories is just not practical in the sense of the foundation requirements and extra building costs. But there are things that we need to just consider and take a pause, and then at an appropriate time we can look at variations to that at a later stage if we wish. But at the moment, I think what we've got here is a plan that has everything in here that we've sought, that's been sought through the submission process, and we need to now get that decision made and get that embedded, and then understand what are the things that we may like to see addressed in the future. And that includes the concerns that are very real to be raised by our community about the shading concerns on the MDRS related provisions. It wasn't our choice to be included in that. We were opted in, as I remember the minister at the time calling me to tell me that an announcement was to be made in an hour and your district's included as tier 1. And I said, well, that's good. What does that mean? And we've then subsequently found out what all that means. But at the end of the day, when we're looking at things here, the council has a decision to accept. It could reject, but rejecting, I think, would be a foolish step to make when we've had a fully independent process that's gone through and adequately considered all that, and that's what we asked them to do. One of the things I just also want to acknowledge, not only the hearings panel, but the extraordinary effort that's gone in by our staff right across our organisation. Thank you. All of you who are here in the room today and some more who've put in huge effort. We're really proud of all of you. Thank you for the efforts. I think putting these together, scheduling hearings, putting all that work is no mean feat, and I think you've done an excellent job in that. I also just want to indicate to you all that as we've requested, there will be a series of drop-in sessions for our community to be able to drop in to understand what all this means, because it's all well and good in planning language, but actually sometimes it's not until you sit down and understand how it relates to your property. And if you've got interest in that, then there's a series of dates which we've nominated, and which of course elected members are most welcome to be present at, so people can understand more about what that means. But in the interim, there's also always a duty planner available, and I'm sure we're only too happy to advise people over the period of time as they understand what all this means for them. But look, again, thank you to our staff. Thank you to all the submitters who put the effort in. Today, I commend to the council the decision on the proposed Waimakariri District Plan, and I encourage you all to vote in favour of this today. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd endorse those comments. It's a privilege for me to second this motion and speak in support of it, largely because this is a momentous day for the council, for staff, for elected members, and reflecting, I think, largely the wishes of our community. Not in all instances, and I acknowledge that too. It's been a very long process. I think we reflected the other day that you could have raised a child in the time that it's taken to bring this plan to being. In fact, some of us have largely done that in this time. I think Matt might be one included. Yeah, so that's just an indicator of that this has to be a rigorous process. It does take an awful amount of time, but that said, it's also a combination of a lot of care. It brings together a lot of expertise, and it should, and I think does, reflect the input from a large cross section of the community. Almost by definition, it's a once in a generational plan, and on that basis, that it sets the ground rules, the sort of the broad operating conditions for how we function as a not just as a district council, but how we interact with our community. And I think it's basically sort of the atmosphere that we breathe, you know, every day. That sometimes it might look more like fog, but it's still something that we have to live and breathe, and that we have to be accountable to our community when they want to know, well, why can I do this? Why can't I do this? People are planning for their families, their businesses, their homes, their environment, and they've got to know what those operating conditions are, and I think this district plan achieves that. I do specifically, again, thank Kelly, Matt. I want to acknowledge Audrey over there as well, who I just had a brief chat with before coming, and she's got colleagues and predecessors who have also run the gamut of this process with a lot of professional care and, dare I say it, patience as well. So that's always really important. Just on a more personal note, I think in my community, you know, I happen to be elected into the Oxford Hoka ward area, and I was just thinking of Mayor Dan's comments about family. For instance, I grew up with, very privileged, my parents were heavily involved in the Hoka Rugby Club down at the Hoka Domain, and it's a place I still go to. Even the other day when we had the drop-in session with Dan, I think after you left, Mayor Dan, I poked my head into the back of the old change rooms, a little pavilion that used to have about 40 people shoulder to shoulder. They were probably sitting on kegs after the game. They used to have steam coming out the side, and that was our world, and that was our community. Things were at that scale, but subsequently Mandeville Sports Centre and its array of clubs, it's a world away from Hoka Pavilion, Mandeville Sports Centre, and the growth of that community. But I really thought, going back in the changing rooms, looking at the back, there happened to be, there's sort of one of those old souls, spin the wheel. And if you want to give an analogy, when we plan for our district future, we shouldn't be spinning the wheel and just hoping for the best. We should be more rigorous and more considered. And I think that's what the hearing panel actually does. It's an independent, impartial body of people hearing from the public, taking expert evidence and coming up with a set of recommendations. So as far as Hoka, other areas are concerned, let's not sort of spin the wheel and just hope that someone can throw a plan out there or a proposal and game a chance to whether it goes forward. The community must have an input into district planning, and I think this district plan achieves that, even though there's some people might be a little unhappy about not getting what they want. So, yeah, this is our plan. We should own it. We should be proud of it. And, yeah, I'm fully happy to endorse this district plan going forward and all it involves. Thank you.
Councillor Ward, then followed by Councillor Williams. Do you wish to speak, both of you? Councillor
Yes,
Ward.
thank you. I just really want to say a huge thank you to our wonderful staff. I know that the timeline from when the hearings and the panel finally gave you their final decision has only been a couple of weeks. Is that correct? And you've had to pull all this together, and you've given us 2 or 3 workshops and briefings and given us great information and support so that we fully understand where we're at, and I really value that. And I just want to say we are so lucky to have such amazing staff that support us and look after this district. So huge thank you. I hope you can all have soon a nice weekend when you're not working hard all weekend. So thanks so much from me anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Williams?
Yes, I'd like to acknowledge the amount of, lot of really good work that's gone into this, and I know a lot of time, a lot of expense and all that. I am concerned, if I voted for this, that means I'd accept all of the recommendations, which unfortunately I don't accept all the recommendations, so that's why I'll be abstaining from voting from this. But there is, don't get me wrong, most of the work is really good, and I'm thanking the staff for that. It's really good. I am concerned when we had the illegal effect vote on the situation, we put, I believe, around 30 odd people in the wilderness, which we thought they were going to be carrying on with their normal situations, and I noticed in this none of them have got anything recommendation on it, so morally I feel embarrassed that I've been let down with that decision that I actually voted for, which if I had known what was happening I probably wouldn't have, and I think others possibly would. So there is a reason why I'm abstaining from this here, but it's 90% of it I'm in favour of, and really good work, so thank you on that.
Thank you. Councillor Cairns?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I must admit, when I first opened the agenda at 2,869 pages, my heart had a bit of a conniption. I now have a better understanding of planning and have a true admiration for the team. And I now understand what a S42A is and the process that writing those reports.
Your test later.
I did have to look it up, Mayor Dan, I did. But what it does for me is, not only as a councillor, but I'm very excited about our future. Effectively, this is setting a foundation for a growth council. And I also see it as there's a huge amount of people that have been very, very keen to invest in this district. They wouldn't have been asking for rezonings if they weren't keen to actually live out here. And the other part of it is that I look at the welcoming communities plan that we're developing now. We've got accessibility plans that are being put in place, where actually it's all fits around the whole ability of actually having a growth council. All of these plans all fit together, but the district plan is one of those crucial elements to allow for this growth. I'm voting in favour of this recommendation, but I certainly do have reservations with the MDRS, particularly as I have a bit of a leaning towards food forest and people growing their own food in their own backyard. So I have read some of the other submissions, and I am concerned about the reduced light, well-being and impacts on people's well-being and health that are neighbours to these 3-story homes and 3-on-1 lot, and particularly or potentially the diminished value of the neighbouring property. I'm okay for MDRS within new subdivisions and that sort of stuff, but I believe that we've got, 30 years of sections that we're opening up in this district plan. We really don't need MDRS, and certainly, as the Mayor indicated, we can look at changes maybe in the future. The other thing is, I look at the Gressons Road property. There's certainly going to be people tested in terms of having to deal with what could it be, 1,500 new sections, and then people, because of not having work close by, that they're going to have to try and get out of the main road. And as I said, better people than me are going to have to deal with building new roads and more educational facilities. But I think that the work that the team have done, I've learnt all of the names now, Manhire and Willis and Rachel and Wilson. It's just been impressive reading through the district plan, and I congratulate the team, and I also congratulate all the people that have put forward submissions. And thank you very much, Matt, Kelly and Jen. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Brad. Councillor Cairns? Councillor Redmond?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following up from some of my colleagues' comments, I know Councillor Williams has reservations about the MDRS, I suspect in particular. I wondered if some of these clauses may be able to be taken separately if people wish to have a different view on some of them, like F and G, for example. I too had some reservations about that. Just going back to the immediate legal effect, that was quite some time ago, and it was a close decision, but it actually served the purpose. The floodgates were probably opening. We had a growing number of subdivisions in the rural area, and that was contrary to what the plan was proposing. So after a lot of reflecting, because it does affect people's property rights, I supported that decision, and in hindsight, I think it was the right decision. It achieved the right outcome. The other thing I'd comment on, my wife tells me I should throw out things like ties that go out of fashion. And I always tell her if we wait long enough, they'll come back into fashion. Well, the same happens with district plans. When I first, as a practitioner, was dealing with them, they were very prescriptive, and you could do something if it was listed in a schedule. Then we went to effects-based plans, which was much harder to advise clients because I wouldn't have a clue what the effect of their activity may have been, and nor did they. So we've now come back to a prescriptive plan. So I don't have a problem with that, and I hope it will make it easier for people to navigate and work out their position in relation to the plan. So there you go. If you wait long enough, it'll all come back around again. The MDRS is something that I did have a concern and still do have a concern about, as several colleagues have mentioned. I am sympathetic to the position that the Christchurch City Council have taken. They obviously had similar issues, and they're a city. We're a peri-urban area, and that call that the Mayor received, you sure he didn't have a wrong number? Because I don't really think those rules apply to a peri-urban district. That would be my belief. I think, however, and I had considered abstaining in relation to those particular matters, but I've decided to take a long view, wait and see what happens with the appeal period, see where we get, because I am aware that there may be another avenue later when we are in control of our own destiny that we can address any anomalies or concerns that we have. I do think it was unfortunate that the rules got changed partway during the game, and we obviously have ended up with a different result in relation to housing intensification than we would otherwise have. Whether we take the view the panel was constrained or not, that was my word. I realise you don't agree with the word constrained, but I was trying to indicate that there were external influences that had come about. So anyhow, I'm going to look at the long-term view, and at this point I am prepared to support all the recommendations. Thank you.
Councillor Bryan.
So, thank you. I'm just slightly confused because Councillor Redmond indicated that he would want them taken singly.
Can I just be clear? I'm going to take them as a whole.
That was what I was going to speak to. Thank you, Mr.
It's
Mayor.
it's all interrelated.
Yes, I
we
know.
can't separate that easily. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do anyone further wish to speak? Councillor Goldsworthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would be remiss to try and add much to the conversation that's been had in this debate. And I commend my colleagues for their thoughtful approach to this monumental occasion. But just in summary, from my perspective of reading the work, and again, congratulations on getting it this far. I know it's been through many hands. This plan, in my mind, it provides certainty and a way forward for our residents. It gives a brief direction of where we as a council are content with the district going. No plan is ever going to be perfect. There's always going to be sidewinders and crossballs and various people that will challenge the rules. And the rules aren't locked necessarily in stone. It's a process, but we will always endeavour, in my mind, as a council, to improve the rules, be enabling, and protect our environments and residents. In summary, it's the best reflection of our current situation and our best hopes for the future for the district, and that is why I'll be supporting this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further speakers? Then in right of reply, just a couple of things to just cover off. With regards to immediate legal effect, I voted against that because I could foresee that that would be the issue. But anyway, it is what it is. It was certainly something I didn't think was the right process to follow at the time because I thought it usurped people's and could usurp people's property and options that they had available to them. But anyway, it was done for good reason, and that was to ensure that the floodgates wouldn't open with respect to the effect it could have on development in the rural area, which we were trying to protect. So it was done for good reason, but it did have a consequence there, and Councillor Williams is right to observe that. In general, I think the things that the district plan's seeking to do is what we've all discussed here, is it's about managing effectively land use. It's about protecting our environment. It's about ensuring that we've got the right rules for managing that in the future. And that we're focusing on one or two matters in a 2,500 page document because they're the main headlines, right? But actually, when you drill into it, there's an awful lot in there, and all of us have been privy over the last number of years. All of us who've been here for a bit of time have been privy to that in the development of that over that period. What I'm particularly pleased to see in there is the granny cottages provision, which increases the size. While the government's indicated 70 square metres, our district plan will have 80 and 90 square metres. Also, it'll enable people that want to have more than one kitchen under their roof. And there are a number of people that are in the situation that have larger families. You know, personally, I want the council to get out of the way of people under their roofs. As long as it meets the building code, I don't personally have a problem. Let's let people live the way that they would like to in that space, and there are a number of people who've been asking for that for some time. A lot of discussion about rural character, and it was mentioned before by Councillor Fulton around Ahoka. Well, I grew up in Ahoka. I spent 20 years there. I had my 21st at the Ahoka Hall. It's an area that I think is a beautiful part of our district, as we've got many lovely parts, and ensuring that the rural character is preserved and protected is what this plan actually does. We've now been through 2 independent processes that have concluded that residential style development in that particular area isn't appropriate. I just really do hope that individuals who are considering that, please take note of that and respect it. We've all got to make sure, and this has been an independent process that we've had nothing to do with. This has been concluded by the hearings panel. So I just hope that message is well and truly understood. I know that there's fast-track provisions and other things that may well be considered. We've consistently said as a council that fast-track should respect processes that have already been well considered and shouldn't revisit those decisions. It's been a position we've advocated. I haven't met anyone in our community, or except the person that was selling the land actually, but I haven't met anyone that's in favour of seeing that style of development in our district, in that particular locality. And I run into a lot of people, so I just make that point. It's something that there are a lot of people that are very concerned that it may lead to that. There's processes underway, and not going to discuss anything further in that regard, but ultimately what we want to see, and I think and what we'd be voting for today, is ensuring that the character of those particular areas are protected, but equally that there's more than adequate provision for our district to grow in areas that are appropriate. And that's what I think that the hearings panel have more than adequately considered. Around the MDRS provisions, I don't personally think 3 stories will work here. But we will test that in the coming period of time. The shading provisions, I also have my concerns, as I mentioned before. But we have, let's see, post-appeal periods where this all sits, and then if we wish to, we have opportunities to consider addressing that at a later stage if we wish. But I wouldn't want to get ahead of that. Let's see where we get to with respect to that first. But we've already been advised that there are those opportunities available to us should we wish. And we have taken the opportunity to write to the Minister to express our views with respect to that, noting that we've been through process and good process with respect to where we've arrived at. But at the end of the day, what's in front of us today is a series of, well, it's recommendations that's interrelated. And I think actually, as I mentioned at the start, this is probably the biggest decision this council will make for many, many years. And today is a rather momentous day in that regard. As was observed before, it is once in a generation plan. It was 20 odd years ago our last plan was first was in its process, and it's taken 20 odd years to get to this point. Let's hope that it's embedded. Let's hope that it gets through the next stages as intact as it can be. And we commend this now really for notification formally. So, and again, just to observe and thank all our staff that have had a role to play in it, led ably by Matt, Kelly, Audrey, all our staff at the back that have had a role. I'm not going to mention you all because I'll probably forget mentioning somebody. And also I'd like to acknowledge Trevor Ellis, who was here in the days when we started this exercise, and Matt, of course, took over, very ably took over there. Jenna, can we acknowledge your support and advice? With a process like this, we've got to make sure that we have conducted things as correctly as we can, and we're well advised. And so just like to acknowledge you and your firm's support of our council through this process. Right, so now I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Declare that carried. And you wish to abstain? And you'd like your abstention recorded? I declare it carried. Well done. What do we do now? Feel like we should be cutting a big cake at some stage, really, after all of this. Once
presumptuous to bring one with me today.
Yeah, no, I think, well, none of us, of course, yes, correct. But there will be an occasion, perhaps after notification, that which is 14th of July, as I understand, that we can consider perhaps acknowledging that in an appropriate way. But again, thank you to everyone today, and thank you for that decision. So I've now got no questions under standing orders, no urgent general business. Our next meeting is scheduled for the Tuesday, the 1st of July. Go well.